If you have a single control faucet that is leaking at the base, either here or here, that would probably be due to a bad O-ring. And there are two O-rings in this faucet, one O-ring here and here inside of the cylinder on the faucet, which makes a seal and allows you to swivel. So it requires two O-rings to prevent the water from leaking and allow you to swivel your faucet. Now, it shouldn't leak. You shouldn't get any water leaking. And I seem to, hopefully that's residual water, but I seem to be getting a little bit of water, not much, but I have some water present, just even with the faucet turned off. And that shouldn't be the case, because that might also mean that I have a bad cartridge, or there are seals, like donut seals at the base of the cartridge that could be leaking too. So it could be a combination of things. But if it's leaking here or from here when the faucet is running, it's most likely going to be a bad O-ring. And I'll show you the symptoms right here. When the faucet's on, there you go. You can see that water leaking out from down here and from up here. So almost certainly I got bad O-rings, but when you turn the faucet off, water shouldn't be leaking anymore, and it's still coming out. That has me a little bit concerned, so I may have additional issues. It may also be a bad cartridge. So the first step, though, will be to take the faucet apart. Now, in this case, this is a American Standard, and I know from the handle, right there, you can see it says American Standard. So that's a dead giveaway. It's an easy way to identify it. Also, I know it's an American Standard because I bought it about 10 years ago, and I still have the parts diagram for it. So I knew which part I needed. Right here's the part number for the seals that go in that cylinder. One seal goes here, one seal goes there, and this bottom piece is just like a plastic washer, like a anti-friction washer that goes at the very base. It's not a seal; it's more of a glide down here. This piece here. So that's the actual part number that you would need. I went to the American Standard website. I put that part number in, and nothing came up. But I went to Amazon. I put that this part number in. Yeah, and there you go. That's the part number from Amazon, and it came up and it was the American Standard store on Amazon. For some reason, the American Standard website doesn't list this part. And here it is, as you can see. But on Amazon, they have a store, American Standard, and they list this part number. So this is the part number that you need for this particular faucet. And the model of this faucet, the one I have, is in, I think I have an 841, I'm pretty sure I have an 8411F. So another thing too, if you're lucky, it won't say the model number anywhere on the faucet, but a lot of times after you take the handle off, inside the handle will be a label that will have the model number on it. If you're lucky, the model number will be there, at least on American Standards. So the first step would be to take your handle off. And in order to do that, you're going to need to, right here, there's a little button, the hot and cold button. It's not a button that you would press, it's just a little cover. So you pull that off, and that exposes a hole, and inside that hole is a set screw, and you're going to need an Allen key. Okay, and then you're going to need an Allen key to remove the set screw. Well, actually, you don't want to remove the set screw, just loosen it up. In this case, I don't know, looks like, I'm just going to guess, probably take a 1/8. Let's see, is 1/8. No, 1/8 is too big. So next one, under 3/30 seconds. That fits. Now you only want to back out the set screw about 2 or 3 turns because the handle has a hollow in it, at least in the case of this faucet. And if you remove the set screw all the way, you'll wind up dropping the set screw into the valve body. As a matter of fact, it's a good idea to put something in your drain. I'm just going to put the stopper in my drain too. So in case I do drop something, I won't lose it. But, so just loosen it up a bit. And then you can pull the faucet handle off. Now it might be tight. But it should come off. And there you go. And as you can see, there's that set screw. Like I was saying, on this particular style faucet, if you unscrew this set screw all the way, which I'll do now because I can see what's going on here, what's going to happen, you try taking that set screw out all the way, there you go. You can't get it through that hole. It'll just fall into the handle. Not a big deal, really, if it does fall into the handle. But in this case, it won't fall into the handle. You know, if you were to take it off, try taking that screw out all the way when the handle's mounted, it'll fall down in here. So you have to be careful when you take that escutcheon off that you don't lose the set screw. Now, here, as I said, here you got the American Standard. It says American Standard, and it is a 8411F Cadet kitchen faucet. So there you go. So that's phone number and everything, customer service. All right, so there's a little sticker in here, tells you what your model number is. So if you're lucky, you'll have that. But as you can see, this part number, which is the actual part number that they listed, that was listed on this original parts diagram that came with the faucet, has that same part number. Also seems to do a whole bunch of faucets as well, not just American Standard. So there's a good chance, if you know, that this particular part number would work for you. Now, once you've taken it apart this far, there's on this particular model, all you have to do is twist and kind of pull up on this escutcheon. This is just an escutcheon, just a beauty ring. And there we go. Now, the fact that I got water welling up here makes me concerned that maybe my seals are leaking at the base. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually take this faucet off, then put the cartridge back on, and then check to see if I'm leaking at all. That'll be before I actually go ahead and replace it, because I want to know what the exact problem is with this faucet, where that leak is, because it shouldn't be leaking now. There shouldn't be any water present because the valve is off. The other thing too is on this particular faucet, in order to remove the spout, you have to take the cartridge off. You can't. Some faucets have a instead of a slip escutcheon like this, they have a threaded nut or something that holds another ring in place that holds the faucet on. So you can actually remove that big nut, and then you can remove the faucet without taking the cartridge out. This faucet, this particular style, the cartridge holds the faucet handle, the faucet spout in place. So you're gonna have to turn the water off. And generally, the water supply valves are right under the sink in most cases. So all you need to do is get down under your cabinet, and a little dark down here, but there you can see them. There are the two supply valves, and just kind of dark, but you got the deal. Turn them off. Don't tighten them as tight as you possibly can. You'll mess up the little rubber washer in there on the seat. Just turn them down firmly, and there you go. So the water's turned off. Now that the water's off, you can relieve the pressure by opening up the valve. Okay, valve's open. And then this cartridge is held on by 3 screws that are slotted. They take a flat-bladed screwdriver. So 3 screws. You just loosen the screws up all the way. You can take them out. Just be careful not to lose them, because they are like they look like 630. They're probably metric or something. Whatever. You wouldn't want to lose these screws. They're long, thin screws, so it'd be a hassle if you lost them. Put them someplace safe. I'll put them on the windowsill. Okay. Now the cartridge comes out, and as you can see, there are 3 sealing rings here. Like I'll pull one out so you can see better. Like little tubes. I'll have to get them out. I'm going to get a little... Okay, I'll use a shish kebab skewer. Toothpick would work too. I just happen to have them in the kitchen here, so... So I'm going to take that and kind of... It's wood, so... Wouldn't want to use... I don't want to... What it is, I don't want to use the screwdriver. I don't want to take a chance of damaging anything. I want to get this out just so. Here we go. So here's the seal. Now, these seals could be leaking. That's a possibility. So, I don't know for sure. And that's something I'm going to check before I finish the job. I'll just verify that I don't have a leak in the cartridge or these seals. This piece here, American Standard calls it a cap retainer, as you can see right here. That's that piece right there, cap retainer. And you can see that just sits in there. So you just pull up on that. That's it. It has 2 flats on each side, and you can see there how it fits over there. So it just sits in place, and it's held in. You got to make sure when you put it back in that you press it down so that it is seated properly. All right, and it comes out like by just pulling it up. All right, so that's that. Once that's removed, you can now take the faucet spout off. Now, as you can see, there's a lot of water dripping down from this faucet. A lot of residual water. Look at that. It's still leaking down. So, and there it is. It's still leaking. So that's a good sign. So that means that water that was leaking when the valve was off, more than likely is just residual water. So this is probably my only problem is in these O-rings. So again, now we're at the O-rings here. I'm going to remove those O-rings, and I'm going to use this shish kebab. You could use a toothpick, the shish kebab skewer. You could use a toothpick. I mean, it really doesn't matter so much because these O-rings are getting replaced. But, you know, what if you got the wrong size O-ring? You're better off not damaging them because at least they're better. They may be leaking, but they're better than nothing. So, you know, if you got the wrong size O-ring and you had to put it back together again and you destroyed the O-rings in the process, then that wouldn't be good. So here, one O-ring. And the O-ring, this O-ring doesn't really look so bad, but it does look, if you look at it, it kind of looks flattened out. And that might be, you know, just from, maybe it got harder and flattened out. So over the years, this post is about 10 years old. So that could be all it takes, even though there's no apparent nicks in this O-ring. The fact that it's flattened out could be why it's leaking. Let's get this other one out. The same deal. I kind of get that skewer in there. It's going to drop into the other ring. I probably should have taken the bottom one off first, but I'll just still be all right. And take it out. There you go. And then there's this plastic washer down here. Remove that. Now that you got that apart, what we'll do is we'll clean that up. Cat's inspecting it. Everything I do, he's got to check it out. Okay, yeah, that's a bad O-ring. That's actually just the seal. Oh, you want that? No, don't eat that. That's a toy. Everything's a toy to him. Okay. What'd you do? No, you can't have that. He took it away. He decided that he wanted that, but we'll leave it there. Now I'm going to clean this up. So, first thing I want to do is inspect everything. Because if the seat that this O-ring, that the O-ring's going right here, if the seats here are corroded, putting a new O-ring in there won't really solve anything. And here the cat he's taking it again. He likes that. For some reason, he wants the white seal. Okay. Put that back in. No. He wants it. Okay, his name is Bugs, and he doesn't really help, but he does participate in some way. All right, we'll put this back here. He might come back and get it again. Again, I want to keep that part. He keeps on taking it away, but all right, let's get back to where we were. So you want to check that out and make sure that that doesn't appear to be pitted. Thoroughly inspect that. Maybe kind of like, maybe even get a brush and kind of a scrub brush and kind of clean that up a little. I'm going to take a scrub brush here. This is just a bristle brush. You wouldn't want to use a wire brush or anything on here. You don't want to take any chances of scraping anything. And now I'm going to get a light. Okay, he's checking everything out. All right, so he's doing his own inspection. Seeing what I'm doing. Okay. Checking out the faucet. Here's in the sink. Okay. Okay. Now I'm going to go with a light here. And I'm going to check that. And see. Okay, he likes the light too. But they look okay. Doesn't look badly corroded. So I think I should be okay there. Try and take the Allen key. Okay, here's the cartridge. So I removed the 3 seals. This seal here, the bigger opening here, is for the spout itself, and these are the supply openings. One is hot and one is cold. And as you can see right now, they're both closed. If I turn the faucet on, depending how I rotate it, I either have just one opening, a mix to some degree, or just the other opening. So as you can see, there's a ceramic disc in there that does that controls the flow and also turns it completely off. So that's it. There are no washers. However, there are seals, or very fat washers here. 1, 2, 3. There are 3 washers here, or seals if you want. But the good thing about these washers is there's no movement. They're stationary. They are just a seal. Unlike a washer type faucet where by opening and closing the valve, you're compressing a washer and eventually cause it to wear out. That's not the case here. These 3 washers are just permanently compressed and never move. They just act as seals, period. The movement is all in the ceramic disc, which does last a very long time and doesn't usually leak. So there you go. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put these seals back in. Here they are, the 3 seals that I removed. And before I put them in, I'm going to coat them with a little bit of silicone grease. This is Super Lube. You can use any kind of silicone grease, really. They make stuff specifically for plumbing. But as long as it's a silicone grease, it's not going to harm the rubber. And it will give it some lubrication and help it seal better. You're not going to go too crazy. Just give it a very thin coating. And I'll put that one, back in here. It also makes it easier to put the washers back in. Put this guy back in. Just rub it on there. You don't need a whole lot. You don't want a whole lot. You just, wind up contaminating your water, I guess. But, I mean, Silicone is relatively inert, but still. So just coat the seal with silicone and put it back in. So there you go. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this faucet back, this cartridge back in. Now this cartridge is keyed. There is a peg here and a hole here. So if we look at this faucet base here, there's a hole right here for that will go with that peg. So that's so important. You got to make sure you line it up properly. So that's going to sit on like that. All right, you have to make sure you put it in properly. And I'm just going to put this faucet on without the spout. The reason I'm doing this is so that I can check to see if this cartridge is leaking. It wasn't leaking into the spout, but if the body of this cartridge is leaking when it's off or as a slow leak, I'll be able to determine that now because I can see everything. And when this thing was on here, it kind of hid if it was leaking at these seals. My main concern is if these seals are leaking. That I'm a little bit suspicious of, because the faucet was still leaking at the base even when it was off. But as you saw before, when I removed the spout, a lot of water, and water's still dripping out of the spout. So it was probably just residual water. The spout seems to retain a lot of water. So that's probably all it was, but I don't want to, I want to know for sure what any issues I might have. So you tighten your screws down evenly. Don't tighten them as tight as you can. Just tighten them good and firm. Now what's very critical right now, before I turn that water on, is I make sure that this faucet handle, that this valve is in the off position. Because otherwise water is going to squirt the holes in the back here. There's a hole in the back here, and water will just shoot out the back if that wasn't off. That should be off. Turn it towards you, it's off. And now I'm going to turn the valve on down below the supply valve. And what I'm verifying right now is simply that the cartridge itself is not leaking when it's off, that that the body of the cartridge, the top of the cartridge, any packings or whatnot, that there's no leakage. The water's on. I'll prove it. I'll just turn a little bit. Okay. All right, there you go. You saw some water come out. I don't want to shoot a whole ton, but actually I'll turn on a little more with the handles. A little better control with the handle. Put the handle on here. And I'm going to make a bit of a mess. I'm going to put I'll put an old sponge back here. And then, okay, there you go. So the water's on. There's pressure, both the hot and the cold. I turned them both on because I want to check that the valve itself is not the problem. And verify that 100% sure. Dry this all up. And take that off. So I'm all dry. So I know that there's nothing wrong with my cartridge. The cartridge is not leaking. I'm not dripping any water out of the cartridge. So now I can get the camera to the back there so you can see that hole there, but you saw the water come out, so you know there's a hole there. As you can see, there's a valley right here that the water is able to flow. From that hole, flows through this valley and into this hole on this faucet. There's also a groove in this faucet here too, in the cylinder of the spout. There is grooves so the water can flow. Now, that's another thing to check, is that this is not badly corroded. If the bore inside of here is badly corroded, then the O-rings won't make a proper seal. So even replacing the O-rings won't do you any good. You're still going to have leakage if this bore was badly corroded. This bore doesn't look too bad. Looks pretty decent. So now that I've determined that's all okay, now I can put everything back together. But in order to put everything back together, I'm going to have to take this valve off again and turn off the water. Okay, now I can take that valve off again. Cartridge. Find out where I put my screwdriver. There we go. Okay, I'll leave the 3 screws in there and put this valve someplace safe. Now I'm going to replace these 3 components. So here's the little kit, and again that's the part number, and here you go. So first thing we'll do is put on this little nylon friction washer or anti-friction washer, and I'm going to put a little bit of just a little bit of silicone on there, just kind of rub it on there. So that will go on first. That goes all the way at the very bottom. Now we can compare the brand new O-ring to the older O-ring. And you can see, if we compare them up close, that it does look like this one is a bit flattened, the old one. So looks like the new one hopefully will do the job and seal it. Because nothing seemed too worn. The seat here didn't seem too worn. This didn't seem to be corroded. That didn't seem to be really corroded. So I think we're going to be okay. Again, I'm going to put some silicone. Just a little bit. Just that's all you really need, and then you just take your fingers and work that little bit on the whole O-ring. Just work it around, get that O-ring coated with the silicone. Now, I'm going to put it on the first notch, not the second notch, not the notch all the way down. That way the next O-ring can glide over this one. So there you go. Now, the next O-ring that goes at the bottom, when I put that one on, instead of getting caught in that groove, it'll just slide over the O-ring that's already in place. And again, just a little bit of silicone. Just rub that on it, just as long as it's glistening with silicone. That's good. That's all you need. You know, you use it sparingly, not just because silicone grease is expensive. That's one reason, but the main reason is because you don't want a lot of it. You know, it just gum up the works if you put too much on. And again. Slide it on. Also, the nice thing about the silicone is the O-ring slides easier when you put silicone on it. You're less likely to roll it around. It'll just slide when you put it in place. So there you go. Now the two O-rings are in. And now I can just slide this faucet spout back on. And again, there's where the silicone is nice, having that on there. Less likely to damage the O-ring because it's coated with silicone. So it will, but you still want to be careful as you're putting it on. And there you go. So now the faucet's back together. Then this, what they call the cap retainer, also retains the faucet. This prevents the faucet from being able to come off. And as I told you before, there are two flats you can see. And when we look at the seat on the faucet there, where the cartridge is going to go, there are two flats there. So this is just going to go, you can see that, and this half hole will line up with that half hole on the flat. You could put it either way, actually. There's no half hole on the other side. So you really can't get this one wrong. Other than what you have to do is make sure that it's seated properly all the way down. Now you can see that, so that it's flush or even with, in the same plane as the base of that the cartridge is going to bear against. So there you go. That's seated properly. Once that's in, again, you just make sure that you look at your cartridge and you see where your pin is, or peg, and that's got to line up, that's got to go on the side that the holes on this side, and the peg's on this side. So we put it in that way, and you can pretty much feel, you can feel that it went in. Even if the screws, I'm going to take these 3 screws out. And you can feel, here you got movement. You can turn it, and you felt it drop in. So right there, it's in that dowel. That dowel went in the hole. Now you can put your 3 screws in. And tighten those up. So try to keep it square as you tighten it down. Don't let it go too much of an angle one way or the other. So just gradually tighten them up. What you're doing in this process is compressing those 3 sealing rings that I showed you before. So once you just tighten them, basically tighten them until you feel a marked increase in resistance. Do that to all 3. Once you've done that, you know that you're seated. After that, go back to them, and each one, give them a little torque. And I get that screwdriver in the slot there. It's a little dark. Just don't go too crazy. If I had to give you a torque value, I'd say maybe 3 foot-pounds. So Or if you, maybe you go by a turn, a quarter of a turn. So here you can see that right now there's a blade there. I'm going to turn the blade 90 degrees. That's a pretty good, and that value, that quarter of a turn is after you had it firmly seated. And that's not a hard rule. You also got to feel, they should all feel about the same amount of tension on each one. You should feel the same amount of effort to turn each screw. You want them even. You don't need a torque wrench to do this. Just feel. Okay, so they're nice and tight, not too tight. If you tighten them too tight, you as you saw, they're very small. They're about 632. That's just a number 6 screw. About the size they are. They're probably metric. I don't know. But if you tighten them too tight, you're either going to strip the threads or break the screw. So be careful. All right, this is all good. Now I can now turn the water back on and see how we are. The faucet is swiveling properly. That's a good sign. Now let's see if it doesn't leak. That's what this was all about. Okay, so before I turn the faucet on, I'm going to dry all the water off in this area. See if I can get right now. The water is on, the supply is on, and I don't have any leakage there, and I didn't expect to. As I determined before, even though the water was off and I was still leaking here and here, there was still leaks going on. That's because this faucet retains a lot of water, the spout, and it's holding back against there and actually was dripping in and causing that leak. It wasn't coming from the supply. So, but I just verified that to be 100% sure that there was nothing wrong with this valve. Okay, so now here's the moment of truth. We're going to turn this on. And I'm dry. No leaks. Okay. Repaired. Now I can put the beauty ring back on here, or the escutcheon. That just slips right on like that. Now what's a good idea, this faucet tends to get kind of tough on the, kind of tight on this tang here. Might be hard if you ever, you know, when I first took this apart before I even did the video just to check it, this was really hard to get off. It was like frozen on there. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to put some copper anti-seize on here, which I'm going to go get. I'll be right back. Okay, I'm just going to put some silicone grease in there. I'm thinking the copper anti-seize might drip down into the cartridge here, and I wouldn't want that to happen. If some silicone grease gets down there, it won't harm anything. So I'll just go with some silicone. So I'm going to put some silicone grease, just like that. There you go. All right, and maybe a little on here. And I'll just rub that on the sides of that. So that way, if I have to take this faucet apart again, it'll come off easy. And also it slides on easy. Also, another thing to note is, I'll take this off, and I'll have to turn the water on to show you. You can see that the Allen key seats, you can actually see with a mark on the Allen key, there's a notch that the Allen key seats in. So it's important that you push this all the way down properly till it's, and actually not the Allen key, I should say set screw. You can see the mark where the set screw goes, and this is a groove. So the set screw goes in that groove. So seat it down all the way. And tighten the set screw. There you go. That's tight enough. And then you put this little button back in, this little cover basically. And you should make sure that, not that it matters that much. I mean, everybody knows, but make the red point to the left, because that's the side that the hot water flows on. And you can kind of line that up so it's square. And there you go. Paper towel and wipe off the silicone that I got all over my fingers. Okay, there you go. The job is finished, and the faucet is no longer leaking at the base. Still dry. I can turn it. No leaks. Oops, silicone's getting. So that's it.